Staff Sergeant Maria Santos felt every eye on the firing line turn toward her when Admiral Richardson's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. "You will surrender that weapon immediately, soldier." The .50 caliber rifle felt steady in her hands despite the sudden tension crackling across the range. 23 other Marines had already complied when the Admiral declared the advanced marksmanship drill terminated, but Maria remained in position, her breathing controlled and her stance unwavering. The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete firing platforms as Admiral Richardson approached her lane, his dress blues pristine against the dusty backdrop of Camp Pendleton's premier sniper range. She could hear the whispered conversations behind her, fellow Marines wondering why the quiet logistics specialist was defying a direct order from a flag officer. Maria's finger rested alongside the trigger guard, not on the trigger itself, as her instructor had drilled into her years ago. The Admiral's footsteps grew louder on the concrete, each step echoing with the authority of 3 decades in the Navy. Her heart rate remained steady at 62 beats per minute, the same rhythm she had maintained through countless high-pressure situations that her current assignment as a supply clerk would never hint at. Admiral Richardson reached for the rifle barrel with his left hand, expecting immediate compliance from what he assumed was an insubordinate supply clerk. The moment his fingers made contact with the weapon, Maria's training took over with lightning precision. Her right hand swept up in a defensive arc, catching his wrist and applying pressure to a specific nerve cluster that sent shooting pain up his arm. The Admiral's hand snapped back involuntarily as a sharp crack echoed across the range, his wrist bent at an unnatural angle. Before anyone could process what had happened, Maria smoothly transitioned into firing position, her breathing pattern shifting into the rhythm she had perfected during her classified years with Marine Force reconnaissance. 6 shots erupted from the .50 caliber in rapid succession, each muzzle flash illuminating her focused expression. The targets at 800 yards seemed impossibly distant to the watching Marines, but Maria's scope had been zeroed for twice that range during her previous life. The silence that followed was deafening as everyone strained to see the results through their binoculars. Admiral Richardson cradled his injured hand against his chest, his face a mixture of shock and growing realization that he had severely underestimated the woman before him. The range safety officer's voice finally broke the stunned quiet as he called through his radio for medical assistance and target verification. The range safety officer's voice crackled through the radio with disbelief as he confirmed what everyone was struggling to accept. 6 hits, dead center mass, 800 yards. Admiral Richardson stared at Maria with new eyes while the corpsman wrapped his sprained wrist. The pain in his hand, nothing compared to the shock of realization washing over him. The other Marines on the firing line stood frozen, their previous assumptions about the quiet logistics specialist crumbling like sandcastles. Gunnery Sergeant Williams approached Maria's position with careful respect, his 20-year career having taught him to recognize elite training when he saw it. The woman who had been filing supply reports and managing inventory for the past 6 months had just demonstrated marksmanship skills that surpassed most of his best snipers. Maria maintained her professional composure, weapon cleared and pointed downrange, waiting for official permission to stand down. Her breathing had already returned to its normal pattern, as if breaking an admiral's hand and placing 6 rounds in a target zone smaller than a dinner plate was simply another Tuesday morning. The whispered conversations behind her grew louder as Marines began connecting dots they had never thought to examine before. Admiral Richardson finally found his voice, though it carried a different tone than the commanding authority from minutes earlier. "Sergeant Santos, I believe we need to have a conversation about your previous assignments." Admiral Richardson's secure phone call to Marine Corps Personnel Command lasted 15 minutes, and when he hung up, his expression had shifted from confusion to something approaching awe. Maria Santos sat across from him in the base commander's office, her service records spread across the mahogany desk like pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. 8 years with Marine Force reconnaissance, 3 deployments to classified locations, and a Distinguished Service Cross that had been awarded in a ceremony so secret that even her own family didn't know about it. The Admiral rubbed his bandaged wrist as he read about operations in places that didn't officially exist on any map, missions where her precision shooting had saved entire teams from certain death. Colonel Martinez, the base commander, leaned back in his chair with the look of a man who had just discovered he had been housing a legend without knowing it. Her current assignment as a logistics specialist was part of a mandatory rotation program designed to help elite operators readjust to garrison life after years of continuous combat deployments. The irony wasn't lost on any of them that the woman they had all assumed was just another paper pusher had more confirmed kills than most infantry battalions. Maria remained silent throughout the discussion, her eyes focused on a point somewhere beyond the office window, where Marines were conducting routine training exercises, unaware that their quiet supply clerk had once been the most requested sniper in the Marine Corps. The emergency klaxon shattered the afternoon calm across Camp Pendleton as Maria was walking back to the supply depot, her morning's revelations still rippling through the base's chain of command. 3 black SUVs had breached the perimeter at Gate 7, their occupants heavily armed and moving with military precision toward the classified weapons research facility on the eastern edge of the installation. Base security was pinned down behind concrete barriers, their standard M4 rifles ineffective against targets positioned 800 meters away on elevated ground. Colonel Martinez's voice boomed across the base communication system, calling for any available sniper assets to respond immediately to the crisis. Maria felt her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with the familiar rush of purpose that had carried her through countless missions in hostile territory. The irony was impossible to ignore that less than 4 hours after demonstrating her capabilities, those exact skills were desperately needed to protect the base and its personnel. Admiral Richardson appeared at her side, his injured hand forgotten as he watched smoke rising from the direction of the firefight. The base's designated sniper team was conducting training exercises 50 miles away, leaving them without their primary long-range response capability. Emergency radio chatter filled the air with reports of casualties and requests for backup that wouldn't arrive in time to make a difference. Maria looked toward the weapons depot, where her .50 caliber rifle waited, then back at the Admiral, whose expression had shifted from recognition to desperate hope. Admiral Richardson's request came without hesitation, his pride set aside in the face of immediate danger to his Marines. "Sergeant Santos, I need you to gear up and take position on the North Tower." Maria nodded once and sprinted toward the armory, her logistics clerk persona dissolving with each stride as years of muscle memory took control. The armory sergeant handed her the .50 caliber rifle she had fired that morning, along with specialized ammunition and a tactical scope that could reach out twice the distance of standard equipment. Colonel Martinez's tactical briefing was crisp and urgent as he outlined the threat positions and friendly force locations, his voice carrying the respect that her morning demonstration had earned. 3 shooters had established overwatch positions on the hills overlooking the research facility, their elevated angle giving them clear fields of fire on anyone attempting to approach. Base security was trapped behind cover with 2 wounded Marines who needed immediate medical evacuation, but any movement in the open drew precise rifle fire from the intruders. Maria checked her equipment with a methodical efficiency that had kept her alive through 8 years of combat operations, each piece of gear finding its proper place through practiced routine. The weight of the rifle felt familiar in her hands as she made her way to the firing position, other Marines clearing a path with newfound reverence. Admiral Richardson watched her ascend the tower stairs, realizing that the woman who had broken his hand might be the only thing standing between his base and disaster. Maria settled into the North Tower firing position and immediately began calculating wind speed, distance, and elevation adjustments with the precision of a mathematician solving complex equations. Through her scope, she identified the 3 enemy positions scattered across the ridgeline, each shooter expertly concealed but not invisible to someone with her training and experience. The radio crackled in her ear as Colonel Martinez coordinated the base response. But Maria was already shifting into the tactical mindset that had made her legendary among special operations communities. She keyed her microphone and began directing the operation with quiet authority that cut through the chaos like a beacon. First target is 1,100 meters, northeast ridge, partial concealment behind boulder formation. The Marines pinned down below recognized the voice of command experience and began following her instructions without question. Maria's breathing settled into the rhythm that had preceded successful shots across 3 continents, her heartbeat slowing to match the methodical pace of a master craftsman preparing to work. Base security forces adjusted their positions according to her guidance, creating firing lanes and establishing overwatch sectors with tactical precision that transformed their desperate defense into a coordinated response. Admiral Richardson monitored the radio traffic from the command center. Listening to the logistics clerk, he had underestimated that morning orchestrate a counterattack with the skill of a seasoned combat veteran. The situation escalated beyond anyone's worst-case scenario when a 4th shooter opened fire from an unexpected position, pinning down the medical team, attempting to reach the wounded Marines. Maria's scope swept across the terrain as she processed multiple threats simultaneously, her mind calculating firing solutions with the speed that had made her invaluable during the most dangerous operations of her career. The enemy had positioned themselves with overlapping fields of fire, creating a deadly crossfire that trapped base personnel in a kill zone with no safe routes for evacuation or reinforcement. Through her earpiece, she could hear the desperation in Colonel Martinez's voice as he reported additional casualties and dwindling ammunition among the pinned security forces. Maria made the tactical decision that would define the next few minutes, keying her microphone with absolute certainty. I have multiple targets in sight, preparing to engage in sequence. Maintain current positions until my all clear. The first shot erupted from her rifle at 1,247 hours. The .50 caliber round traveling across 1,100 meters of desert air to find its target with surgical precision. Before the sound of the first shot faded, she was already adjusting for the second target, her bolt action cycling with mechanical efficiency as years of training compressed into moments of life-or-death execution. The radio fell silent except for her steady breathing and the calculated precision of someone who had never missed when lives depended on her accuracy. Maria's second shot neutralized the northeast target before the enemy could relocate, her rifle cycling with the mechanical precision of a metronome, keeping deadly time. The third target attempted to shift positions but moved directly into her predicted firing lane, where her bullet found him mid-stride across the rocky terrain. Through her scope, she tracked the 4th shooter who had created the crossfire, watching him panic as his carefully planned ambush collapsed under her systematic dismantling of their overwatch positions. Her final shot traveled the greatest distance at 1,300 meters, threading between 2 boulders to reach a target that most shooters would consider impossible in combat conditions. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by Colonel Martinez's voice confirming all hostile contacts eliminated and medical teams moving to assist the wounded. Maria maintained her firing position for another 60 seconds, scanning for additional threats with the thoroughness that had kept her alive through countless similar engagements. Base security forces emerged from cover with renewed confidence, their evacuation and reinforcement procedures proceeding without the deadly harassment that had trapped them minutes earlier. Admiral Richardson's voice came through the radio with unmistakable awe as he confirmed that all base personnel were accounted for and the research facility remained secure. Maria finally allowed herself to relax her shooting stance, the familiar weight of the rifle settling against her shoulder as she confirmed her weapon was safe and began her post-engagement procedures. The walk from the North Tower to the command center felt different than any Maria had taken in 6 months at Camp Pendleton. With every Marine she passed stopping to acknowledge her with respectful nods and expressions of genuine admiration. Admiral Richardson waited at the base of the tower, his bandaged hand a reminder of how completely he had misjudged the woman who had just saved his installation and possibly dozens of lives. The same Marines who had watched her file supply reports and manage inventory that morning now looked at her with a reverence reserved for combat legends, their understanding of her capabilities transformed by witnessing her precision under pressure. Colonel Martinez emerged from the command center with the base's senior staff, each officer's demeanor reflecting the profound shift in how they perceived the quiet logistics specialist they had worked alongside for months without truly seeing. Admiral Richardson's formal commendation would follow proper channels, but his immediate words carried the weight of someone who had witnessed excellence beyond rank or assignment. "Sergeant Santos, you have my deepest respect and gratitude, along with that of every Marine on this base." The wounded Marines being evacuated to the medical facility owed their lives to her marksmanship, a debt that would be remembered long after the official reports were filed and classified. Maria accepted their recognition with the same professional composure she had maintained throughout the crisis, but something fundamental had shifted in the base's social dynamics that could never be reversed. The following weeks brought changes to Camp Pendleton that rippled through every aspect of base operations, with Maria finding herself at the center of a transformation that extended far beyond her individual recognition. Young Marines began requesting transfers to her supply depot, hoping to learn from someone whose legendary status had spread through unofficial channels across the entire Marine Corps community. Admiral Richardson formally requested that her rotation assignment be extended, recognizing that her unique combination of elite combat experience and current operational readiness made her invaluable for base security planning. The morning formations took on new energy as word of her actions inspired Marines throughout the installation, proving that excellence could emerge from unexpected places and that assumptions about capability were often dangerously wrong. Colonel Martinez integrated her into the base's tactical planning committee, where her insights from years of special operations experience provided perspectives that transformed their defensive strategies and training protocols. Maria maintained her professional demeanor while accepting these new responsibilities, but the isolation of pretending to be something less than she was had lifted like a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying. The other Marines in her unit no longer saw her as the quiet clerk who processed their equipment requests, but as a proven warrior whose presence elevated their own standards and expectations. Even her morning coffee routine changed as Marines approached her with tactical questions and requests for training guidance, seeking wisdom from someone who had proven her capabilities when lives hung in the balance. 6 months later, Maria stood on the same firing range where Admiral Richardson had underestimated her capabilities, watching a new group of Marines complete their advanced marksmanship training under her direct supervision and guidance. The morning sun cast familiar shadows across the concrete platforms, but everything else had changed in ways that reflected the lasting impact of that decisive day when assumptions collided with reality. Admiral Richardson approached her position with a smile, his hand fully healed and his respect for her capabilities permanently established through shared experience and mutual understanding. The range that had witnessed her demonstration of precision shooting had become a training ground where Marines learned not just marksmanship, but the importance of recognizing excellence regardless of rank, assignment, or initial appearances. Her story had become part of Camp Pendleton's official training curriculum, used to teach young officers about the dangers of underestimating personnel and the value of looking beyond surface assignments to recognize true capability. Maria's .50 caliber rifle rested in its case beside her, no longer a source of controversy, but a symbol of proven excellence that had saved lives and transformed an entire base's understanding of hidden potential. The quiet logistics specialist who had once been overlooked and dismissed had become a living legend whose actions reminded everyone that heroism could emerge from the most unexpected places when courage met opportunity. Have you ever been underestimated because of your role or appearance, only to prove your true capabilities when it mattered most? Share your moment of proving yourself in the comments below.